Hello, it's Paul Green from the business community with another one of our regular spotlight on interviews. And this morning I'm joined by Bharat Panchal of C4 Secure. Good morning, Bharat.
Good morning, Paul.
So he's in the hot seat today. So we're going to find out a little bit about his business journey, what makes him tick, and then he's going to share a few security tips with us later on in the session. So before we start that, Bharat, do you just want to introduce yourself and let people that might be watching this or listening to this know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Bharat Panchal, as Paul has already mentioned, from C4 Secure, we are focusing on helping businesses ditch the password, but without compromising security and secure access to their data. The whole thing is about identity assurance, knowing who the person is that is coming into your data, rather than just allowing somebody to have a password to basically enter and do whatever they want to do with your information. In a nutshell, that's what we do.
Okay, fair enough. So tell me a little bit about your business journey and how C4 Secure came about. Put my teeth in. C4 Secure came about.
Well, I'm a little bit probably aversion to social media, but certainly not aversion to business in the sense that we started business life, myself and my colleague, about 30 years ago, when it was fashionable to want to go into business and have this driving urge to be your own boss. So in 1992, we started a reseller ship selling Olivetti equipment and accounting systems based around Sage and Multisoft, as it was called at the time. That progressed on, and as is a life situation, you meander through making taking avenues where you know that there's going to be some kind of revenue, and that leads you into areas that perhaps you don't want to be in, or maybe you're not exactly where you should be. So 30 years on, we decided that myself and my partner would part company, because the business that we were running at the time, whilst very healthy, had gone into an area that I wasn't comfortable with, but he was. So in essence, we parted, and C4 Secure was born. I wanted to go back to my roots of identity branding. In other words, being associated with something that was tried and tested, and therefore the company would flourish on the back of their reputation.
Fair enough. Sounds reasonable. So you introduced yourself and you said that effectively you're trying to get rid of passwords. So that might seem a little bit odd for people. As soon as the passwords go, then how does your security how is that sustained? So you want to say a little bit more about what that actually means? What replaces the password? What are the sort of things that you put in place so people can still be secure without having to remember their probably easy to remember password?
Yeah, I mean, passwords are now an established method of securing information, and whilst they are good, or were good, unfortunately, the flip side, i.e. the people that you want to keep out, are getting cleverer too. So mechanism, we're all humans, unfortunately. The mechanism had to be devised that helped both end users exercise a degree of modicum in terms of what their password should be. But the difficulty is that because of the processes that these unscrupulous people apply, you need to be in a position where you can remember passwords that are useful and meaningful. And unfortunately, therein lies the problem, because we as humans only have a capacity to remember certain things, and machine language isn't part of our everyday being. So unfortunately, we need help, and to eliminate the password will mean that people will not have to remember and exercise the diligence that they need to, that a computer or an external device can exercise. So it really is a question of how do you go about actually keeping the convenience for the end user to be able to access and do their work properly, without losing the element of security. So there's a balance of convenience and security that is going on. What we do is we with a product called RSA Secure ID, we employ or deploy external methods, and some people are already used to doing this two-step authentication or multi-factor authentication already. So it's just an external aspect that generates a code for you, so you don't have to worry about having to put exclamation marks at the end of your last password or recycle your previous 3 passwords. And that's only just for one application. Of course, you've got, lots of applications that people will want to access, and trying to remember passwords for every one of those and have to change them regularly is a bit of a bind for a lot of people. So that's really where we see our future lies.
Yeah, I've certainly seen it more and more. I mean, for example, this platform at the moment, StreamYard, I don't have a password for that. If I go to log in, it just sort of sends me an email, gives me a code. I put the code in, and that actually gets me in. So I'm not going to remember the password. I've seen more and more platforms do that. I think GoCard has recently introduced a two-factor authentication. I know historically, because I think my LinkedIn got hacked at some point somehow, Facebook as well. So now that's a similar sort of process as well. So you get a little, whether it's a text or email, just to confirm it's you. So it does make it a lot easier. I guess I'm like most that. I know it's a bad thing to do, but you tend to use the same password across all different platforms just to make it easy to remember. And of course, if one gets hacked, then potentially they'll just get in and using the same thing. So I totally get it. Yeah, absolutely. So, so what got you into that in the first place? Then, what was the main attraction? I know you came out of the business with your partner. What had you choose that particular avenue to go down? You said that it was sort of related to your past. So, what was the sort of like connection there? Would you say?
Well, IT has always been, throughout my working life, prominent in forging effectively a career for myself. I think that as a person, I try to relate myself and my problems to the business problems that other people will suffer, because if I suffer them, they certainly will themselves. So conceptually, this is a problem that everybody actually suffers in some shape or form, whether they are a single user or whether they are, a multi-corporate organization. I just felt that there was a need for need for me to go and help businesses start to become more and more aware. But on the other side, of course, you've got GDPR, and our friends are at the ICO. The businesses by law have to be compliant in terms of the information that they keep, and to be able to safeguard it. But of course, if you're giving or leaving open doors for people to come in, then you're not really complying with GDPR. So it's a business problem that occurs for everybody. And there is a business solution for it. And as you quite rightly say, people are introducing measures to help users to access their particular application. But of course, passwords without any context or any meaning behind, in other words, without assessing the risk, is really not a good situation. It's not a one-size-fits-all scenario that unfortunately people believe that passwords, removing the passwords will do for them by this two-factor authentication, etc. You've heard of SMSs being hacked now, and mobile phones being used by, private mobile phones being used by people in work scenarios. How do you police it? It's very difficult unless the corporate actually starts putting in a proper governance in terms of where the password and how the password scenario is actually administered. People are working disparately now, a lot more. So it is a problem.
And there's some quite scary stats out there, aren't there, in terms of cyber attacks and compromises and ransomware and stuff like that. So I think it's people should definitely start taking, the security aspect more seriously than maybe some are right now. So I ask people on these sessions, what's your why? What drives you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's the sort of like motivation for you? What would you say is your why, Bharat?
Well, my why is really the need to help businesses recognize their problems. And the biggest kick I get is when the client actually says yes, and says, yeah, I understand, I have synergy with your thoughts, so yes, I will take your advice and implement your suggestions. That's really where it comes from. I think that ultimately, your business is your personality, and my personality is very much down to understanding what the problem is and then offering a solution. And if I offer a solution that actually is then implemented, I get a massive buzz out of that.
Yeah, I can imagine, particularly if you're going into larger companies that you're working with, then trying to sort of like see what the issues might be there and then putting a solution in. Yeah, for finding the that magic piece to sort of complete the puzzle must be a good fit. I get that. So there's a number of people out there that presumably offer similar services or the same service to you. What would you say distinguishes you from your competitors?
Well, first and foremost, the product that I'm sort of associating myself with, which is the RSA Secure ID. For those that know, it's a pedigreed product that's been around for over 40 years. It's MOD level defense that is built into the architecture of the product. So the actual association with a product like that helps in the first instance, because you don't have to justify what you're selling in the first hurdle. What really differs me from other people is the fact that I try to get intimate with their business processes and their business problems that they have, and by taking the time to actually understand and then talk to solutions to them, is sometimes a little bit beyond some people's well, they don't want to do it because we're all looking for the quick buck. We're always looking to grow as quick as you possibly can. Sometimes the bigger organizations don't want to get out of bed for the kind of solutions that we're talking about, but that's very short-sighted as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's very much down to my personality and the way I approach the issue, or that any business actually uncovers.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. I think you come across as being passionate and caring about the service that you offer, rather than it just being a function. So who would you say? Do you have like ideal clients that you're looking to engage? Is there a sort of like sweet spot for you?
Well, I think that in essence, the businesses that we deal with, there is no real industry type, because the problem that we're talking about applies to really a cross section, or across the board in terms of the business side. I think anybody who wants to protect their data seriously is the kind of client we're looking for. However, we have to appreciate that there is a cost element, and some people will go the cheap and cheerful route, or some people will actually look to address it in a way that they think, as I mentioned, on a one-size-fits-all scenario. I think that realistically, for a proper company implementation, most businesses above 10 users will feel the benefit more than the smaller organizations, where the end users are pretty much known to it's a flat file structure. They're all sitting there doing each other's jobs effectively, and that is not security doesn't become so much of an issue, because the users are too familiar in terms of the business itself. So yeah, I think 10 plus users, you seriously should be looking at, well, the balancing of security and the convenience aspects.
Mm-hmm. On the security front, on the like smartphones now, you've got face recognition, you've got fingerprint ID to get into the phone. Do you think that's something, maybe it is already in business? Do you think that's something that will come along, or do you think it'll always be the sort of
No, biometrics is already an accepted form of authentication, effectively. But what you need is not so much just the biometric at the one end. You've got to have the back end engine basically analyzing and assessing the risk that person is bringing at the time of getting into the system, because in essence, people can do fingerprint reading, can do iris recognition, eye recognition and facial recognition and all that kind of thing, but that is only one part of the story. The other part is actually assessing, what kind of applications are they getting into? What role do they play in the business, and how important is that role to the validity of their access? So it's that contextual part at the back end that is also equally as important as giving them the tool to get in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've been in business for a long time, all good. So over that period of time, what would you say is the biggest challenge? Or maybe as you've been in business for 30 years, there might be a few challenges out there that you see, but if you're to pick one or two, what would you say the biggest challenges you face as a business owner?
Yeah, you're right. The challenges have been numerous over the years. I think the biggest challenge is change as technology is more and more prevalent in business life, or in every. I use this phrase that every man is an IT expert. Because, and you can go down the pub and get yourself some kind of advice on how to put a network together. It is very much down to the challenges, I think, is for us to sit down with people who are sensible about their business, and they are not looking for the quick fix situation, because I think that is the biggest issue in this economic climate that we're in. We're all looking for stability, we're looking for the norm, we're looking for everything to be really, really fast and off the shelf, and it isn't like that. Things take time to get people's mindsets over, and after all, we are dealing with human beings, which is the weakest link in any business, as I would profess. But it is. I think every day is a challenge in different ways. That makes sense.
Keeps you on your toes, doesn't it, Bharat?
Absolutely.
Well, you've kindly agreed to share some of your knowledge with us, so I'm just going to put you in solo mode, just really hand over the floor to you, and see you in a few minutes' time. So the floor is yours, Bharat.
Okay, so basically, I just want to start off with some stats. 81% of breaches result from weak or stolen passwords. An average corporate user has 21 passwords, and the total cost of ownership for in terms of IT managers, 50% of the call volume is for password resets. So why go passwordless? Well, passwords continue to rule our lives. We all know the rules and our inspirations for typical passwords. 8 to 16 digits, yes, in some cases that long. Alphanumeric, special characters, our pet name, our favorite color, our mother's maiden name. Oh, and by the way, you have to change them every 30 to 90 days. And that's just for setting one password. Think about how many times you've just added a character here and there to change it from one service to the next, because how in this world will you remember all of those minute differences for each account? And on top of that, the personal accounts we need to manage, we're also charged with setting and maintaining passwords for professional resources as well. It's a mess. From a user convenience angle, Managing all these different instances of passwords creates lots and lots of friction. For large businesses, it's estimated that nearly 50% of IT help desk costs are allocated to password resets. And that can amount to more than £1 million, dollars, whichever currency you're dealing in staffing, just to help your team reset their passwords. It would be one thing if passwords were costly, but got the job done and kept out the bad guys. But they don't. Passwords are expensive and continue to be the #1 attack vector and cause for breaches. Stolen and compromised passwords continue to be the top way that malicious users get into accounts, including in major hacks like the SolarWinds breach. For organizations, using passwords tends to create weaker security, more friction, and a higher total cost of ownership. It's a lose-lose-lose situation. Those baseline password woes were exacerbated by the crazy 2020 and the major shift to remote workforce. In some cases, organizations had to rush out remote work resources virtually overnight, accelerating their digital transformation initiatives. Today, enterprises are looking for ways to enable their workforce for permanent remote work by providing a secure means to log into their workstations. And they need to find a way that's not only frictionless, but also boosts productivity. They need to go passwordless. There are various solutions that offer passwordless ways to get into your Windows machines and web and SaaS-based applications. These are by using what we call FIDO tokens or security keys. FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online. This capability provides multi-factor authentication to workstation logins that leverage FIDO as a hardware authenticator and meet the high assurance levels required for proving compliance without impacting user convenience. FIDO security keys also provide stronger defenses against phishing and man-in-the-middle attacks. Windows login with FIDO security key is a strong form of multi-factor authentication and adds multiple layers of security, including a security key for unlocking the device itself. These logins also require that the users tap into the key to make sure a human is using it and not malware acting on their behalf or on behalf of the attacker. So it's by adding more layers that these solutions make it harder for the bad guys to get where they shouldn't be getting to. Whatever approach any organization takes, we need to look for trusted vendors with proven password technologies. Passwords rule our lives, but we can and should change that. We can show you how, so get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bharat. You had someone tuning in, Eloise, who I think you had a one-to-one with recently. So she's been listening in, and she put another comment there as well. So there you go. So thank you very much for that. So the final thing that I ask people is if you were to give one top tip from your experience to another small business owner out there, what would that top tip be? What would your guidance be?
Well, there's two things that I would say. One is recognize the importance of your information, your data. You don't want to give it away for free to anybody. So you've worked hard for it, so secure it. And the other side of the coin is, of course, don't break the law. GDPR is growing teeth, and somewhere along the line, it'll be coming to you. It's getting the big boys at the moment, but certainly it will filter down at some stage to us menials at the other end of the spectrum. So please, one thing that I would say is value your data, but secure it too.
Absolutely. Good advice. So your ordeal is over, Bharat. So thank you for your time today. I'm going to close the live stream there. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Paul, for the opportunity. And I hope that people find it a little bit interesting, if not, a motivation to switch off too quickly.
No worries. Thank